Dad, really? Mom's right. You really are a fool. Those were the last words I heard from my daughter before I hung up. Over the next few days, she sent texts and left voice messages, but I deleted them all after hearing the first few words. They echoed my ex-wife's sentiments. My daughter made her choice 10 years ago, and I see her attempts at reconciliation as insincere. I'm Tom Williams, formerly married to Kayla Williams. We were together for 17 years until everything fell apart. And of course, I got the blame. Our divorce courts are biased against men, always siding with the ex-wife and giving her full custody, letting her paint me as the villain. The divorce laws in this country seem to be written by people who hate men. We had 2 kids, a 14-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter. I thought everything was great. I loved my wife, and I believed she loved me. Our kids were smart, athletic, and well-behaved. Carly, our daughter, was a daddy's girl, and Josh, our son, was a friendly and athletic boy. I worked as a mechanical engineer, and Kayla was an accountant. We both kept fit and looked good. Carly idolized me and wanted to be an engineer like me. She got her driver's license on her 16th birthday and loved driving. She would help me in the garage from a young age, handing me tools while I worked on my car collection. We often went to car shows together, spending weekends immersed in our shared hobby. I was good at household chores, and Carly liked helping me. I taught her plumbing, electrical work, drywall, and painting. She even assisted with installing new appliances and laying a concrete slab. For most things, she came to me for advice and help, while she turned to her mom for girl issues. We were open and honest with each other, and she came to me when she was in trouble. Josh, on the other hand, wasn't into cars. He was a good student, excelling in English literature and social studies, and talked about becoming a lawyer. He was more attached to his mom than me. A few weeks ago, Kayla started acting distant and occasionally zoned out. When I asked if everything was okay, she brushed me off. It was Friday night when I got home from work at 6 o'clock, and things felt off. There were no dinner smells, and Carly didn't greet me. I assumed the kids were out with friends. I put my briefcase in my office and went upstairs to change. In the bedroom, I found Kayla's black dress, lingerie, stockings, and heels laid out. It seemed we were going out, though she hadn't told me. She was in the bathroom applying makeup when I walked in. "Where are we going, honey?" I asked, taking off my shirt. "We're not going anywhere," she replied. "Then why are you wearing so much makeup and laying out a hot outfit?" "I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm going out." "Really? Where are you going, and where are the kids?" "The kids are spending the night with friends. I have a date, and I won't be back until morning." "A date? You're not coming back until morning?" "Exactly. If all goes well, I'll spend the night with him." "Are you insane? You can't expect me to put up with this. If you want to go out, wait until the divorce is final. Stop being ridiculous. There won't be a divorce. I just need this one night to prove to myself that I'm still attractive. If you love me, you'll let me have this. If you loved me, you wouldn't even think about it. I love you, but I need this. I'm getting older and need to feel attractive. Clarence, who's 10 years younger, has been flirting with me, and I accepted his proposal. It's just one night to boost my confidence. I'm not putting up with this. Remember our wedding vows? If you do this, you're breaking them. It's just one night. Afterward, it'll be back to normal, I promise. Are you stupid, or do you think I am? If you break your vows, it's over. I'll see a lawyer immediately. Don't be an idiot. There will be no divorce. If you try, I'll fight you and make you lose everything. I'll get full custody of the kids and make them hate you. You say you love me, but threaten all this? I do love you, but if you try to divorce me, I'll fight. I just need this one night. And what about in a few years when you feel the same way again? It won't happen again. It's just one night to satisfy my curiosity. Maybe I'll even learn something new to spice up our bed life. If you go through with this, our marriage is over. Cancel the date, and we can try marriage counseling. We'll talk about counseling when I get back tomorrow. She continued getting ready. I changed into jeans and a t-shirt and left the room. Later, she came downstairs in her outfit, clutching a small purse, and checked herself in the mirror by the door. I sat in the living room as a car horn honked outside. "He's here. I have to go now. I'll see you in the morning." She leaned in to kiss me, but I turned away, and she kissed the air instead. She frowned at me. "Fine. Once you calm down, everything will be back to normal." With that, she turned to leave. I made one last plea. "If you walk out that door, it's over. Think twice about throwing away 17 years of marriage." She looked back at me. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'll be back and everything will be fine." With that, she opened the door and left. I started crying, mourning the loss of my marriage and the woman I had loved exclusively for 20 years. 17 years of marriage, a year of engagement, and 2 years of dating. I couldn't understand how she could do this to me. She never expressed any dissatisfaction. Our bed life was normal and she never asked for more. I would have given her anything she wanted. We never fought, just had normal disagreements that we always resolved. I had already decided what to do if she left. Half an hour later, still waiting for her to come back, I finally got up and went to work. She didn't return, so I went upstairs to implement my plan. It wasn't great, but it was all I had. Our house had 4 bedrooms: the master bedroom, Carly's room, Josh's room, and a large guest bedroom with a private bathroom. I moved into the guest room. It took me 2 hours to move everything. I knew the divorce laws in our no-fault state favored the wife, meaning she'd likely get the house, the kids, alimony, and I'd be left with the bills. Settled in my new room, I went to our home office and logged into our online banking. Years ago, I opened an account in my name to buy gifts for her without ruining the surprise. Now, I decided to use it differently. I transferred half of our checking and savings to my personal account. Then, I paid off and canceled all our credit cards and issued new ones in my name. I'd transfer my direct deposits at work on Monday and call our broker to split our investments. Having done what I could, I poured a glass of Jim Beam and went to bed. It was a rough night. The bed felt empty without her, and my mind wouldn't stop racing. I kept thinking about what I could have done differently. Should I have tried to stop her? Confronted the guy with a baseball bat or a weapon? Was it worth going to jail? I barely slept, dozing off now and then. When morning light came through the window, I got up, took a shower, shaved, and dressed. I went downstairs, had breakfast, and read the paper with a couple of cups of coffee. At 9, Kayla returned. I was in my office, looking at apartments for rent. I had already researched attorneys and scheduled an appointment for Monday afternoon. "Good morning, sweetheart. I'm home as promised," she said cheerfully as she entered. I ignored her. My anger had been building all night and morning. I realized I didn't deserve her disrespect and there was nothing I could have done to stop her. It was her choice entirely. People say you can't stop loving someone suddenly, but you can turn that love into hate. Hate still has emotion. Indifference is the true opposite of love. By this morning, my love for her had turned to hate. I focused on her lack of respect, her threats, and her disregard for my feelings. "Honey, where are you? I'm home, just like I said," she called, searching for me. "There you are," she said, finding me in my office. "I'm back and things can go back to normal." She reached out to hug and kiss me. I shoved her back. "Keep your filthy lips off me. God only knows what you've touched." Her eyes widened in shock. I'd never spoken to her like that before. "You need to go to the clinic and get a full set of STD tests. I want to see a notarized clean report." Her expression changed from shock to anger. "I'm going to our room to nap. I've had a long night. I hope you've calmed down and will apologize for your rudeness." I couldn't help but smile, anticipating her reaction. "What the hell did you do?" she yelled from upstairs. "Where are your clothes and toiletries?" She barged back into my office. "My things are exactly where they should be." "Your closet and drawers are empty. Your side of the dresser is empty." "Everything is in its place. My clothes are neatly in my new bedroom closet and dresser." "In my bedroom?" "Yes, I moved out of your bedroom. I'll live in my new room until I find an apartment and move out." I decided not to mention the finances yet. Let her figure it out. Her eyes narrowed. "We'll discuss this later. I'll give you a week to recover, then I'll put everything back to normal." "Not until I get a notarized report that you're free of all diseases," I said, turning back to the computer. I stayed in my office most of the day. The kids came home early, and I wondered how long it would take them to notice something was wrong. I found some promising apartments, filled out forms, and scheduled viewings for Tuesday. I printed out our financial statements for my lawyer on Monday. Although I had no illusions about selling the house, knowing its value might help. I spent the rest of the day researching divorce laws in our state. I knew I'd get screwed over, but needed to understand how badly. "Daddy, dinner's ready," Carly said, peeking through the door. "Okay, sweetie. Thank you." Kayla greeted me in the kitchen with a radiant smile, trying to liquidate me with kindness and show me what I'd lose. She dressed up, did her hair, and spent a lot of time cooking my favorite meal. She offered me a glass of wine and leaned in for a kiss. I pulled away, seeing the pain in her eyes. I poured the wine down the sink, grabbed a tumbler, filled it with ice, and poured some Jim Beam. The kids noticed this as I joined them at the table, ignoring Kayla. Dinner was tense. I kept the kids talking, but it was clear we were in trouble. I didn't eat, just passed the dishes around and sipped my drink. "Dad, aren't you going to eat?" Josh finally asked. "No, not hungry," I replied. After the most awkward dinner ever, I refilled my glass and went back to my office. I didn't help clear the table. Half an hour later, I shut down my computer, grabbed my truck keys, and left for a quiet restaurant dinner. Afterward, I had a few drinks at a bar. When I got home late, I made enough noise closing my room door so Kayla could hear. I locked it and wedged a chair under the handle. She tried to get me to open it for about 5 minutes before giving up. The next morning, I got up early, deciding it was a soccer day. There were 3 games, and I planned to watch them all. There were chores to do, but I ignored them. I wouldn't be living here much longer, so Kayla could handle it. After almost finishing my coffee, I started making an omelet. I was just finishing when Carly walked into the kitchen. "Hi, sweetie. Want an omelet?" I asked. "Sure, Dad. Thanks." She took her juice and sat at the table. Josh came in a few minutes later, and I told him I'd make his omelet next. Carly ate while I cooked Josh's. When I heard Kayla in the hallway, I poured the last cup of coffee and turned off the kettle. She walked in, took a cup from the cupboard, and saw the empty pot. "You couldn't leave me a cup?" she asked. "The pot's right there. You know how to make it." "Never mind." "So, you're making scrambled eggs?" "Made them. Feel free to make your own," I replied, handing Josh's plate. Then, I walked out of the kitchen. Near noon, I was in the living room watching the game. Kayla brought a plate of food and a beer, setting them on the coffee table. "I brought you lunch and a beer so you won't miss any of the game," she said cheerfully. Without looking at her, I kicked the plate and bottle onto the floor. She stood in shock. During a commercial, I went to the kitchen for a beer. Yes, it was a waste, but I wasn't drinking anything she brought me. I didn't clean up. She brought it. She could clean it. "We need to discuss this," Kayla began. "Shut up. The game is on," I replied. "You need to fix your attitude. The kids have noticed." "They'll notice when I move out." "You're not moving out, and there won't be a divorce," she insisted, walking away. Around noon, Carly and Josh came in together and sat facing me. "Dad, what's going on with you and Mom?" Carly asked. "Your mom and I are getting a divorce. It has nothing to do with you. We both love you. It's just between us." "But why?" Josh asked. "Because she did something I can't accept. Even after I told her how I felt, she did it anyway. She's not remorseful." "You mean her date on Friday night?" Carly asked. "You know about that?" I was surprised. "Yeah, Mom told us you weren't happy about it." "So you know she cheated on me?" "No, she didn't," Josh said. "She told you about it, so it wasn't cheating. She didn't sneak around, and it was only once." "Yes, Dad," Carly added. "She said if you really loved her, you'd let her have that night and move on." "Really? If she loved me, she wouldn't consider sleeping with anyone else." "Come on, Dad. It was just once, and she promised not to do it again. She made a vow to me 17 years ago in front of God and our families to forsake all others until pass away. If she can break that vow, how can I trust her private promises?" "But you vowed to be there for her, in good times and bad," Josh said. "That's right, but she broke her vow, releasing me from mine." "We don't understand why you'd break up the family over one night," Carly said. "Why am I being blamed for what she did? She's not leaving. She wants to move on. You're the one leaving and making a big deal out of it," Carly insisted. After that, things didn't improve. I tried explaining my position, but they wouldn't listen. Kayla had convinced the kids that Mom did what she needed to be happy, and Dad didn't love them enough to accommodate her. They believed my ego was tearing the family apart. They saw it as one night out of 20 years, insignificant compared to 7,305 nights together. When they realized I wouldn't accept their stance, they left, and I watched the rest of the game in peace. As dinner was being prepared, another favorite meal of mine, I ignored it and watched the post-game show. Josh came in and said dinner was ready. I grabbed my keys and headed out. "Where are you going?" "Dinner's ready," Josh asked. "I'm going to the sports bar to watch the game. I'll eat there," I replied. "But Mom fixed." "I'll be back after the game." The sports bar had a good burger and seasoned fries. I had 1 beer per quarter, enough to drive the 5 minutes home. When I returned, everyone was in bed. The plate and bottle were gone from the coffee table, which made me smile. Monday morning, I left early and called my broker from the office to split our investments. I opened a new account and transferred half of our investments into it. Then, I updated my HR records, removing Kayla from my retirement account and listing Carly and Josh as heirs. I also updated my direct deposit to my new account. I informed my boss about the divorce and needing time off. He was supportive. My lawyer confirmed custody would depend on the kid's preference, which didn't look promising based on our conversation. I spent Monday evening at the sports bar watching football, eating tacos. I ignored texts and calls from Kayla, but told Carly where I was. She wasn't happy. When I got home, they all gave me dirty looks. I went to my office, and by the time I went to bed, everyone was asleep. Tuesday morning, I left early before anyone else was up. Work was fine, and I took the day off to look at apartments. I found a nice 2-bedroom place, put down a deposit, and planned to move in on Saturday. I bought a couch, table, and chairs from a thrift store to be delivered Saturday afternoon. I decided to take my current bed and home office items with me. When I got home, they were already eating dinner. They hadn't set a plate for me, which was fine since I wasn't planning to eat with them. I made a huge sandwich, grabbed chips and a beer, and headed to my office. "Dad, why are you being such an idiot?" Carly exclaimed, entering my office. "Your mother cheated on me, showed no respect, and threw it in my face. I made it clear what would happen if she did, and she did it anyway. You can't ruin our family over this. It was just lovemaking." "Carly, imagine your future husband telling you he's going on a date with a younger woman and will spend the night with her. Would you be okay with that?" "I wouldn't like it, but if it was only once and he promised to come back, I'd hope I loved him enough to get over it. If he told me first, it wouldn't seem like cheating." When you say your vows, imagine looking into your fiancé's eyes and telling him you're off to have fun with another man. I turned back to my work. Wednesday evening was an ambush. When I got home, both sets of parents were there. I understood why her parents would be on her side, but I was puzzled that my parents were there too. "Tom," Charles began, "Kayla's mother and I are disappointed in what she did, but you're overreacting. It was just one mistake in 20 years. You have 2 wonderful kids. Don't destroy your family over one incident." "It wasn't a small mistake. It was a planned event. She told me just an hour before, giving me no chance to resist." "Son," Mom intervened, "she didn't cheat. She told you first. She didn't ask. She just told me. Even when I objected, she didn't care. I told her what would happen if she went through with it, and she did it anyway." "Tom," my father said, "I understand your pain and anger, but think of your family. We love you and are here to help you heal. Kayla still loves you and insists she won't do it again. With counseling and effort, you can overcome this. Tearing the family apart isn't the answer. Think of your mother and me. These are our grandchildren, and we'll do whatever it takes to maintain a relationship with them." I was stunned. My parents were on her side, telling me to accept her cheating. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned and walked to my bedroom, shutting the door in Kayla's face. 10 minutes later, I changed into jeans, a casual shirt, and boots. I walked through the living room and out the door without saying a word, ignoring their attempts to talk to me. I drove to the sports bar for dinner and a few beers. When I returned about 4 hours later, the house was quiet and dark. Thursday and Friday were the same. I ignored Kayla, and the kids were still mad at me. Kayla hadn't noticed the credit cards weren't working yet, but she would when she went shopping on Saturday. Friday night, I was in my office sorting through my things, deciding what to take the next day. Kayla entered wearing a see-through nightgown, stockings, garter belt, and heels. She looked amazing. "The kids are sleeping elsewhere tonight. It's time to forget this nonsense and come to bed with me. I need you to take me back." "No, thank you. Besides, I haven't seen the clinic report confirming you're clean." "Stop being ridiculous. I need you back in my bed. Your tantrums aren't helping. Now come on. I'm passionate and need lovemaking." "Not interested. If you don't, I'll call Clarence again." "So what if it's a one-time thing?" "It was a one-time thing, but if you keep rejecting me, you're pushing me to someone else." "Have fun. Let me know if you bring him here so I can leave." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I heard the front door slam and her tires screech as she drove off. I took advantage of the empty house to gather my things. I disassembled the bed and loaded it into the truck along with most of my clothes. I slept on the couch in my office that night. Early the next morning, I went to the leasing office to get my apartment key. It took a while, but I moved everything from the truck into the apartment with help from friendly neighbors. When I got back, the house was still empty. A neighbor's teenage son helped me load my desk and office furniture into the truck. I moved the computer, printer, and accessories, and decided to take the chair too. Either no one came home or they didn't notice my office and spare bedroom were empty. In the evening, my phone rang. It was my daughter. "Daddy, where are you?" "I'm home, honey." "No, you're not. Your office is empty. The bed and dresser are gone from the spare bedroom, and your chair isn't in the living room. Plus, your truck is gone. You're right. I'm not there. I've moved into an apartment. Maybe after the divorce, I'll buy a house, but this will do for now. Geez, Dad. I can't believe you're being so stupid. I thought you loved us. I do love you, sweetheart. Always have and always will. Just not enough to stay with us. I'm not leaving you. You'll still see me as much as you want. I'll still take care of you and your brother. You abandoned us and are destroying the family. Your mother is the one who destroyed the family. I told her what would happen if she went on that date, but she did it anyway. But she thought you loved her enough to get over it. And I thought she loved me enough not to do it. Okay, whatever. She hung up. The divorce was a nightmare. She fought it to the end. Counseling? She wanted me to pay. I refused. I argued she should pay if she needed it. That was one of the few arguments I won. The counselor didn't like me because I told him I was ordered to attend, but didn't have to participate. I endured all 12 sessions before he gave up. She fought over everything, even things she hated, just to make the divorce harder. She limited my time with the kids as much as possible. Eventually, the judge granted the divorce. I had to pay half the mortgage, child support of $2,000 a month, and $1,000 a month in spousal maintenance for 5 years unless she remarried. She moved Clarence in before the divorce was finalized. Half my paycheck went to her. I cashed out investments to buy a small house needing renovation. I got it cheap and moved in with my tools. The house had basic utilities, and I worked on it in the evenings and weekends. Visitation was a disaster. Kayla did everything to prevent it. The kids were always busy or away on my weekends. They had activities or tests on Wednesdays. When I did see them, they treated me with hostility and blamed me for everything. Kayla had turned them against me. I sent gifts, cards, and letters for birthdays and Christmas, but they were returned unopened. I kept sending monthly checks, which were cashed, but I never heard a word. I guess they graduated, but I heard nothing. I informed them of college funds, but got no response. Kayla set my kids against me as she promised. I focused on work and the house, avoiding other activities. I saved a lot of money this way, but it was a hard and lonely time. "Hi, Mom," I said when she answered. "Tom, how are you?" she replied cheerfully. "I'm okay. I haven't heard anything about Thanksgiving. Are you hosting again this year?" There was silence. "Mom, are you there?" I asked. "Well, this is awkward." "Yes, we're hosting, but Kayla, her parents, and the kids are coming. She's bringing her new boyfriend. We thought it would be too awkward if you were here, too. The kids are still mad at you, and having you and Kayla's new man together would stress everyone out. So, you're ditching your own son for Thanksgiving and inviting my ex-wife and her boyfriend instead? We want to stay close to our grandchildren. Besides, this is your fault for not keeping the family together. How about visiting us on Christmas Eve? Your father and I will spend Christmas Day at Kayla's." "Whatever," I muttered, ending the call. I spent Christmas Eve at home watching Die Hard and ignored my mom's calls and texts. I wasn't in the holiday mood, especially after the packages I sent to my kids were returned unopened. 5 years later, I got a wedding announcement. Kayla had married Clarence the weekend after I made my last maintenance payment. Josh turned 18 a year early, so I was done with child support. I was finally free of obligations to my ex-family and celebrated by getting drunk. I wasn't proud of it, but I gave them all my love, and they rejected me. Now, I was focused on moving on with my life. I still had to pay half the mortgage, but my name was on the deed. The divorce allowed Kayla to live there only until the kids graduated high school. With Josh's graduation, I was entitled to half the property's value. I contacted my attorney. The house, initially appraised at $300,000 with $200,000 in equity, was now worth about $500,000 with $450,000 in equity. I was due my half, which would be around $250,000. I wanted the money and also to annoy Kayla. A week later, Kayla called. "Tom, what the hell is going on?" "Not much. Just working and fixing up my house. Why are you calling?" "You idiot! Why did a realtor come to my house to get my signature for a sale? Since both our names are on the title, your signature is needed for the sale." "What sale? I'm not selling this house." "Then write me a check for my half of the equity." "I got the house in the divorce." "No, you got to live there until Josh graduated. Now we can either sell it and split the proceeds, or you can buy out my half." "I'm not giving you $100,000 for a house I own." "Good thing I'm not asking for $100,000. The equity is about $450,000 now, so my half is $225,000. Including all the furniture, let's round it up to $250,000. You're crazy! I'm not giving you a dime, she shouted, hanging up. Yes, I laughed when she hung up. Yes, my lawyer got his cut. But it was worth it to see her face when the judge ruled in my favor a couple of months later. The judge even made her pay her legal fees and mine for bringing a case that should have been settled out of court. The house appraised higher than I expected, including the furniture's value. I got $275,000. They bought me out, mostly using Clarence's money, which later got him in trouble. I fixed up my house and built a decent-sized shop behind it. I bought a 1972 Chevy pickup in bad shape, mainly for the chassis. Over the last year, I took it apart, cleaned it, and repainted it. When the bodywork was done, I worked on the running gear, rebuilding the rear differential, and installing a Borg-Warner T10 4-speed manual transmission. I had fun with the engine, a 427 big block, which I found online and had shipped. I took it apart, sent it to a machine shop for modifications, and added a supercharger. I polished the aluminum and chromed the valve covers, making it shine. The first time I drove it, I almost wrecked it. I floored it on the highway, blowing out the rear tires. I learned to take it slow on the gas pedal after that. A few weeks later, I saw an ad for a car show and decided to enter. I loaded up the 72 Chevy and drove to the park, registered, and got my spot. I noticed a nice 1968 GTO parked next to me. As I set up my shade structure, chairs, and refrigerator, I saw two attractive red-headed women setting up chairs behind the GTO. One looked my age, and the other was about 10 years old. Importantly, I noticed there was no man with them, and no ring on the older woman's finger. "Good morning. I like your car," I said cheerfully. "Hi, thanks. I like your truck too," said the older one. "Thanks. Have you been to many of these events?" "This is my first time participating. I'm Tom, by the way." "This is our third time. My ex has hosted it before. I'm Marie, and this is my daughter Jenny." "Why don't you two join me in the shade when you're done? I have drinks and could use some tips about these shows." We spent most of the day together, occasionally talking to people about our cars. It was very enjoyable. "No, I didn't win any awards, but I had fun," I said. Marie mentioned, "I divorced my husband 3 years ago because I caught him cheating." "Who was he cheating with?" I asked. "His boss's wife," she replied. "She made a deal. She'd give him all the videos if he signed the GTO over to her. She wanted him to keep his job to pay alimony. It was a double win for her," she said. Jenny joined in, saying she was angry at her father and had nothing to do with him anymore. As the show wound down, I suggested, "How about dinner at Red Lobster nearby?" They agreed. Over dinner, I shared my story. My kids sided with my wife and want nothing to do with me. Jenny was stunned. "She cheated, and they blame you?" "Yes, she turned them against me," I said. Marie put her hand on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Tom. You don't deserve this." "Thank you, Marie," I replied, changing the subject to something more pleasant. We talked and laughed for another hour, exchanged numbers, and agreed to meet again. As they left, Jenny smiled and gave me 2 thumbs up. The next weekend, I asked Marie out for dinner and dancing. She enthusiastically agreed. "I'd love that," she said. After our third date, I invited them to my house and cooked dinner. "I learned to cook after my divorce," I said, serving lasagna. They seemed to like it. "Your house is nice," Marie said, but I overheard her telling Jenny it needed a feminine touch. I wouldn't have argued. The following weekend, I visited them. Marie's cooking put mine to shame. "Even Kayla wasn't as good," I admitted, apologizing for eating so much. They laughed. "That's the best compliment you can give a cook," Marie said. Jenny was also a good cook. 2 weekends later, I took Marie to dinner and a dance club. During a slow song, we pressed together, swaying to the music, and ended up kissing. It was pretty hot. A few weeks ago, she leaned over and whispered, "Take me home." Surprised, I said, "I thought we were having a great time. Now you want to go home?" She giggled. "No, silly, take me to your house." Relieved, I agreed. Luckily, I had my regular truck, and not the 72, which might not have handled the drive. I went for it. The next morning, I made her breakfast before driving her home. I got another double thumbs up from the red-headed teenager in the window. I proposed, and she said yes. We had a simple ceremony in front of a judge, and they moved into my house. Jenny even started calling me Daddy. Life was wonderful despite occasional disagreements. Jenny and I had our differences too. She was a teenager, and I was the authority figure. Still, she respected me, and her mom loved me as much as I loved her. About a year later, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. Hello? Hi, Daddy, an excited voice said. Carly? I asked. Yes, Daddy, it's me. I have great news, she said. Really? It's great to hear from you. I'm getting married, she announced. That's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you. I want you at my wedding, she said. Of course. It's a great honor to walk my daughter down the aisle. I also have a wedding fund for you. Oh, no. Clarence is paying for the wedding, and he'll be walking me down the aisle. Since it would be awkward for you and Mom, you won't be in the front pew. But I still want you there. Clarence? The man your mother cheated on me with? Did she marry him? Dad, I'm trying to rebuild our relationship. After you left, she and Clarence fell in love and got married. It's your fault. If you hadn't left, they wouldn't have continued dating. Clearly, you still think your mother did nothing wrong. I can't support a marriage I believe will fail. You might cheat on your husband like your mother did. And you took my last honor and gave it to the man who broke up our family. You're showing how selfish you've become. Fine, don't expect to see your grandchildren if you act like this. I don't want anything to do with them. Really, Dad? Mom's right. You really are a fool. Click. That was the last thing I heard from my daughter as I hung up. So much for a relationship with her or Josh. It hurt that they still blamed me for their mother's actions. I put my phone away and went to work on the 1963 Chevy pickup I had pulled from a field. I wanted it to be more drivable than my 72, with a rebuilt 350 engine slightly more powerful than the original. I didn't notice Jenny grab my phone. I didn't even know she was home. I saw my phone ringing from an unknown number, one of many calls during wedding planning. Hello? Hi, is this Carly Williams? Yes, what can I do for you? You can stop calling my dad and being a cow to him. He's the best man I know, and he doesn't deserve a spoiled strumpet like you reminding him of the past. You and your family are a waste of air. Who are you? I'm Jenny Williams, your sister. My mom married your ex-dad, and he adopted me. I love him and respect him, unlike you. Your mom disrespected her husband and slept with another guy, and you don't seem to care. My biological father cheated on my mom, and she kicked him out. If my mom had cheated on my dad, I'd help him throw her out. Your dad is decent and compassionate. I'm thinking of sending your mom a thank you card for letting him go. Oh, and you can tell your grandparents they have another granddaughter, but I don't want anything to do with people who rejected their own son for a cheating strumpet and her traitorous offspring. When you say your vows, think about your husband cheating on you and call me so I can laugh. Have a crappy life, sis. She hung up. I stared at my phone in shock. First, I learned my father got married without telling us. Then I found out I had a younger sister. I couldn't shake the thought that she looked a lot like me before Mom told Josh and me that Dad was leaving over something small. At first, I thought Dad must have had a good reason and considered living with him. But then Mom explained she just needed a small thing to restore her strength. It was just one short period compared to their long time together. Mom was willing to work things out, but Dad wouldn't even try. He was the one leaving and breaking us apart. I couldn't believe how rude Jenny was to me. She didn't give me a chance to explain that Dad abandoned us and Mom was trying to move on. It was a one-time event, insignificant in their long relationship. And yet she called me vile names without knowing me. Why was Dad so upset? Of course, Clarence was walking me down the aisle. He'd been there for me for years. I hadn't talked to Dad since Josh and I told him how angry we were about him leaving. Besides, Clarence was paying almost $20,000 for my wedding. I couldn't imagine how little Dad had set aside. Half an hour later, when my mom and grandmothers came back from shopping, I was still upset about those calls. Honey, what's wrong? Mom asked. I told Dad about the wedding and invited him. I thought he'd want to be there and maybe we could rebuild our relationship. Oh, that's wonderful, exclaimed Grandma Williams. Is he coming? We haven't heard from him since he called about Thanksgiving years ago. I sighed. No, he got mad when I said Clarence would walk me down the aisle and that it would be awkward for him to sit with Mom and Clarence. That's too bad. I thought he'd gotten over his pig-headedness by now, Grandma said. Well, it gets worse. I found out I have a half-sister, I added. What? They all said in unison. Yes, a girl named Jenny Williams called after Dad hung up. Apparently he married her mom and adopted her. She wasn't nice on the phone. The nicest thing she said was thanking my mom for being stupid, or she wouldn't have such a great dad. I recounted both phone calls to them. They were shocked by the anger from Dad and Jenny. Tom got married and we weren't invited. He didn't even tell us. Grandma whispered. I have another granddaughter. My wedding day finally arrived. I thought briefly about my father and felt sad he wouldn't be there, but it was my happy day. I was marrying the man I loved. Clarence took my hand and we walked down the aisle to the wedding march. I was beyond happy, surrounded by friends and family. Josh was one of Bobby's groomsmen. Tears of joy filled my eyes. Bobby smiled at me from the altar and Mom looked at me with pride. Clarence lifted my veil, kissed my cheek, and said, Congratulations, baby girl. He handed me to Bobby. When the priest asked, Who gives this bride away? Clarence replied, Her mother and I. It felt off, but I couldn't figure out why. As the ceremony began, I repeated my vows, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, in good times and bad. I couldn't continue. I remembered Jenny's words and imagined Bobby with another woman, then him as a broken man if I cheated. I understand now, I said. Bobby looked concerned. I felt a weight lift off me and smiled. I finally get it, I told Bobby. That's great, Carly. But what did you realize? Everything, I replied, then got serious. Bobby, do you really love me? Of course I love you. How can you ask that? I have to ask because I can't marry you today. The audience gasped. We'll still get married, just not today. This is wrong, and I have to make it right. I only want to get married once. For life. Baby, what's wrong? Bobby, I love you. I will marry you, but I need to explain and make things right first. We'll reschedule and plan our wedding again. You're not leaving me at the altar, are you? No, you should come with me. Everyone, I'm sorry, but we can't do this today. We're not canceling, just postponing. We'll let you know the new date. If you don't want to come, we understand. But think of the story you'll tell. The reception hall is ready. Everything's paid for. So enjoy the food, drinks, and dancing. Clarence will cover the bill. I took Bobby's hand and headed back down the aisle. Mom and Clarence blocked my exit. Clarence yelled about the money he'd spent and demanded I repay him. Mom asked, Carly, what are you doing? I'm correcting a mistake I made years ago. What mistake? Listening to you instead of supporting Dad. The mistake of blaming him for the breakup when it was your fault for cheating. Carly, I'm your mother. Speak to me with respect. Respect? Once a cheater, always a cheater. Carly, how dare you? How dare I? I realized today what a horrible person you are. I saw how much it would hurt if Bobby cheated on me, just like you hurt Dad. I guess Dad was a good role model after all, but you weren't. What do you mean? She asked, fear in her eyes. Do you think I don't know about your workouts with Jim Davis at his apartment or your sessions with Carlos, the pool guy? How about the landscaping crew? I've got video footage of your affairs. And tipping Mario, your barber, with a fellation. At least Clarence doesn't have to worry about you cheating with your boss since he is your boss. And don't forget Alan Morris, your neighbor. Mom's eyes flicked to Clarence, who looked utterly shocked. I continued, Clarence, I swear I'll repay the money you spent on this wedding with the same commitment my mother has to her vows. Then I pulled Bobby down the aisle and stopped to talk to the videographer. He had captured everything and handed me a copy of the video. I signed an authorization form to post it on YouTube, hoping it would go viral. Bobby and I ran to the parking lot. He had driven his car with our bags in the trunk. We planned to move them to the limo, but now we just got in his car. I knew Dad would like Bobby, especially when the 440-cylinder engine of his 1969 Challenger roared to life. It wasn't a GM, but it was still a beast. Where are we going? He asked as we sped out of the parking lot. Head west on 156. I'll put the address in Waze, I replied, working my phone. It wasn't hard to find. I knew the town he lived in, and a quick search of real estate records gave me the address. He was about 2 hours away. I hoped he'd be home when we arrived. We didn't stop to change clothes. I was on a mission and didn't want to waste time. It's unusual to open your door to a woman in a wedding dress and a man in a tuxedo. If you were a priest at a church, it might happen occasionally. But I'm not a priest, nor do I live in a church. The bigger surprise was recognizing my daughter, who had made it clear she didn't want to see me. Today was her wedding day, so why was she here instead of at the church, reception, or on her honeymoon? Daddy, can I talk to you for a minute, please? She asked softly. Still stunned, I stepped back and let them in, gesturing toward the living room where Marie and Jenny were. They looked shocked. Oh, Carly, this is my wife Marie and our daughter Jenny. Jenny, Marie, this is Carly. I'm sorry, but I don't know who the guy with her is. Oh, Dad, this is Bobby Jensen, Carly introduced. Bobby, This is my dad, Tom Williams, his wife Marie, and my sister Jenny. Fiancé? I thought you just got married a couple of hours ago, I said, confused. That's what I need to talk to you about. I can't do it today. I can't get married unless Daddy walks me down the aisle. Daddy, I finally understand. You were right. I'm sorry for blaming you. It was Mom who gave up on us, not you. I'm sorry for everything I said and did. You didn't deserve any of it. I was young and stupid and listened to the wrong people. Please forgive me and let me back into your life. I really want to marry Bobby, but I need you to walk me down the aisle. I should have been focusing on other things, but I couldn't ignore the scene unfolding. I was glad Carly realized I wasn't the bad guy and wanted me back in her life, but I had to know more. So, Carly, did something happen at the wedding? You're wearing a wedding dress and Bobby's in a tux. Were you really at the wedding? She looked at herself, then at Bobby. Yes, we were halfway through the ceremony when I had an epiphany. Here, she said, handing me a disc. Maybe you should watch it while Bobby and I change. Bobby grabbed their suitcase from the car, and Marie took Carly to a bedroom to change. Meanwhile, I set up a video player connected to the big screen. When Carly and Bobby were ready, Marie joined me, and I pressed play. It started like a normal wedding ceremony. The groomsmen escorted the bridesmaids down the aisle, then separated at the altar. Bobby entered with the priest, then the ring bearer and flower girl. Finally, Clarence walked Carly down the aisle. Everything was typical until Carly started saying her vows. She suddenly found it hard to speak and got stuck on one word. She did it. I can't believe it hit her so hard, whispered Jenny to herself. I was about to ask Jenny what she meant when Carly stopped her vows and changed everything. The video showed her stopping the wedding and confronting her mom, revealing her increased cheating since marrying Clarence. By the time the video ended, Carly and Bobby had changed clothes and returned to the living room. I couldn't go through with it. Looking into Bobby's eyes, I realized how much it would hurt him if I did to him what Mom did to you. I finally understood what forsaking all others meant and saw how Mom had broken that vow. She dishonored you, and I dishonored you by not giving you the place of honor you deserve. I realized that if I wanted my vows to have meaning, I needed you to walk me down the aisle, not Mom and Clarence. Carly smiled and looked at Jenny. I need my little sister as a bridesmaid. Your words woke me up. How can I get married without you by my side? We talked for hours. Jenny had gotten Carly's number from my phone and called her right after I went to the workshop. As it got late, I asked Carly and Bobby to stay in the guest bedroom. Throughout the evening, Carly received several calls. She ignored Clarence and Kayla, but talked to friends who were enjoying the reception. Clarence couldn't cancel the reception, so he showed up to find people taking advantage of the open bar and food. Josh sent Carly a video of Clarence and Kayla arguing, with Clarence yelling cheating strumpet frequently. Their relationship seemed to be ending too. Josh canceled his reservations but paid a penalty. Carly and Bobby stayed with us all week since they had already taken time off for their honeymoon. I reconnected with Carly and got to know Bobby better. Though he initially believed the lies told by my ex-wife and kids, he warmed up to me after learning the truth. Showing him my store and projects helped, as we both appreciated each other's cars. By midweek, a new wedding date was set for the same venue a year later. This time, I would walk Carly down the aisle and pay for the wedding, with Marie and Jenny helping out. Carly and Bobby updated the wedding party, excluding Kayla and Clarence. Over the next few months, Carly and I rebuilt our relationship. Bobby and I bonded over car shows, and Jenny joined in with her 74 Firebird. Carly and Bobby visited us regularly, and even Josh came by a few times. Though it was harder with Josh due to his closeness to his mother, we rebuilt some of our relationship, partly for Carly's sake. He also brought news from home. By the way, things between Kayla and Clarence fell apart. Clarence moved out and filed for divorce due to irreconcilable differences, not infidelity, so the harsh penalties of their prenup didn't apply. He aimed for a quick and easy split. Fortunately for Clarence, the prenup stated that all his premarital property was exempt from division. Kayla would get half of the property acquired during the marriage, which wasn't much, mainly the house and about $50,000. Clarence tried to claim part of the house but had no proof. Although he used his money to buy out my share after the divorce, he couldn't prove it. He took a business loan for his company to get the money, but didn't document the expenses. Since Kayla owned the house before they married and never put Clarence's name on the title, she refused to discuss it. Clarence ended up paying off the loan without getting any return. By the time he realized this, it was too late to file an infidelity complaint. Rumors of Kayla's infidelity spread, damaging her reputation. Friends distanced themselves and invitations dried up. Her financial situation worsened without Clarence's support. Clarence learned an expensive lesson. He lost hundreds of thousands buying out my half of the house, another $28,000 on the wedding, and had to pay Kayla $50,000 in the divorce. He also faced humiliation. Kayla told everyone he had a small member and didn't know how to use it. She spread gossip that he refused to perform mouth lovemaking on her. This destroyed his social life, turning him into a recluse. "Ready, Daddy?" my oldest daughter asked. "No father is ever ready to let his daughters go, but I'm honored to do it for you," I replied. The doors opened, music filled the church, and I proudly walked my daughter down the aisle. I glanced at the fourth row where my ex-wife sat, and then at the front row where my wife Marie sat. After giving my daughter away, I whispered, "Love you, baby," kissed her on the cheek, and handed her to Bobby. I joined Marie in the front row. Carly practically shouted, "To have and to hold in sickness and in health, in good times and bad." With a bright smile, she finished her vows. The ceremony was beautiful, and the applause was loud when they kissed. At the reception, I noticed Kayla sitting off to the side, unhappy and drinking from the open bar. Clarence wasn't invited. My duties were done. I walked my daughter down the aisle, gave a toast, danced the father-daughter dance, and then danced with my wife. I sat next to Marie and watched my youngest daughter dance with one of the many guys vying for her attention. "May I ask your husband for this dance?" I heard a familiar voice ask my wife. Marie and I turned to face my ex-wife. Marie stared for a moment before responding. "Just return him to where you found him." She looked at me. "I trust you, but not her." I led Kayla to the floor as a slow song started playing. I kept my distance and tried not to pull her close. After a bit, she spoke. "You were supposed to give me that one night. We were supposed to forget about it and move on. Tonight should have been just us. You shouldn't have left that night. You should have known I wouldn't accept you cheating on me no matter how many times you did it." "I didn't cheat. I told you before I did it. I didn't sneak around." "Whether you told me or not is irrelevant. The fact is, you had lovemaking with someone else. Besides, I told you not to do it, but you did it anyway." "I never wanted this. I just wanted one night, and then we could be together forever. You know you're the only man I've ever loved. I never loved him. The lovemaking wasn't even that great." "Then why did you marry him?" "Because you divorced me." "I didn't love him, but I didn't want to be alone. I thought I could love him, but I couldn't get over you. I did those nasty things because I was angry you left. I still loved you, but you wouldn't talk to me after that night. I realized you were all I needed. So why did you cheat on him?" "Because he was terrible in bed. He wouldn't take advice, wouldn't go down on me, and I stopped giving him fellations. When I couldn't take it anymore, I found other guys who could satisfy me. I didn't know Carly knew. I never thought she'd leave me like that. I feel sorry for you. We had a great marriage, but you ruined it for one night of mediocre lovemaking." "I don't think there's any chance," I laughed. "Even if I wasn't married now, you destroyed any possibility of us getting back together by turning our kids against me. I'm happily married now with another daughter I love. The best I can offer is being civil at events with our children and grandchildren." Thankfully, the song ended. I didn't speak to her again that evening. She couldn't afford the mortgage, so she sold the house and moved into a small apartment. The sale proceeds were enough for her to live on if she was careful. She dated occasionally, but never had another serious relationship. Clarence ended up living alone, too. Carly and Bobby had a long, loving marriage with 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. Josh married a nice girl, and they had 2 daughters. As far as I know, neither cheated on their spouse. Some people think I should have sought revenge on Kayla and Clarence, but I chose to move forward and live my life well. The best revenge is a life well lived, and I let karma handle the rest. Clarence and Kayla didn't burn, but they didn't escape unscathed. I had nothing to do with their downfall, but I still feel good. I have my wife, daughter, and 2 other children back in my life. I'm surrounded by people who love me and have a good life. "Ready, Daddy?" my daughter asked. No father is ever ready to let his daughter go, but I'm honored to do it for you, I replied. The doors opened, music filled the church, and I proudly led my daughter down the aisle. My wife smiled from her place of honor in the front row. I joined her after fulfilling this last important duty for my daughter. "Don't worry, Dad, I'm going to do it right," Jenny assured me.